The Lost Book of Enki, Tablet 1, Part 2. Before the prior times was the beginning. After the prior times were the olden times. In the olden times, the gods came to earth and created the earthlings. In the prior times, none of the gods was on the earth, nor were the earthlings yet fashioned. In the prior times, the abode of the gods were on their own planet. Nibiru is its name, a great planet, reddish in radiance, around the sun an elongated circuit Nibiru makes. For a time in the cold is Nibiru engulfed, for part of its circuit by the sun strongly is it heated. A thick atmosphere Nibiru envelops, by volcanic eruptions constantly fed, all manner of life this atmosphere sustains. Without it, there will be only perishing. In the cold period, the inner heat of Nibiru it keeps about the planet, like a warm coat that is constantly renewed. In the hot period, it shields Nibiru from the sun's scorching rays. In its midst, rains it holds and releases, to lakes and streams giving rise. Lush vegetation our atmosphere feeds and protects. All manner of life in the waters and on the land to sprout it caused. After aeons of time, our own species sprouted, by our own essence and eternal speed to procreate. As our numbers grew, to many regions of Nibiru our ancestors spread. Some tilted the land, some four-legged creatures shepherded. Some lived on the mountains, some in the valleys, their homes made. Rivalries occurred, encroachments happened, clashes occurred, sticks became weapons. Clans gathered into tribes, then two great nations each other faced. The nation of the north against the nation of the south took up arms. What was held by hand to thrusting missiles were turned. Weapons of thunder and brilliance increased the terror. A war, long and fierce, engulfed the planet. Brother amassed against brother. There was death and destruction both north and south. For many circuits, desolation reigned the land. All life was diminished. Then a truce was declared. Then peacemaking was conducted. Let the nations be united, the emissaries said to one another. Let there be one throne on the Nibiru, one king to reign over all. Let a leader from the north or from the south by lot be chosen, one king supreme to be. If he be from north, let south choose a female to be his spouse as equal queen to reign alongside. If by lot a south male be chosen, let the north female be his spouse. Husband and wife let them be, as one flesh should become. Let their firstborn son be the successor, let a unified dynasty thus be formed, unity of Nibiru forever to establish. In the midst of the ruins, peace was started. North and south by marriage were united. The royal throne into one flesh combined, an unbroken line of kingship established. The first king after peace was made, a warrior of the north he was, a mighty commander. By lots true and fair was he chosen. His decrees and unity were accepted. For his abode he built a splendid city, a gate, unity meaning, was its name. For his reign a royal title he was granted, and it was a celestial one was its meaning. With strong arm order in the lands he re-established laws and regulations he decreed. Governors for each land he appointed. Restoration and reclamation was their foremost task. Of him in the royal annals, thus it was recorded, and the land unified peace on Nibiru he restored. He built a new city, the canals he repaired, food to the people he provided. There was abundance in the lands, for his spouse the southern maiden had chosen. For both love and warring she was noted. Antu was her royal title, the leader who in An's spouse the given name cleverly did mean. She bore 3 sons and no daughters. The firstborn son by her name Enki. A solid foundation was its meaning. Alone on the throne he was seated, a spouse to choose was twice postponed. In his reign concubines were brought into the palace, a son to him was not born. The dynasty thus begun was by the death of Enki disrupted on the foundation, no offspring followed. The middle son, though not the firstborn, the legal heir was pronounced. From his youth, one of 3 brothers, Ib, by his mother was lovingly called. The one in the middle his name did mean. By the royal annals and Ib, he is named, and kingship celestial by generations, the one who is An's son, the name signified. He followed his father An on Nibiru's throne. By count he was the third to reign. The daughter of his younger brother he chose to be his spouse. Ninib she was called, the lady of Ib. A son to Ninib by Ninib was born. The successor of the throne he was, the fourth by the count of kings, by the royal name An-Shargal. He wished himself to be known. An's prince, who was greatest of princes, was the meaning. His spouse, half-sister Kishagal, was equally named. Knowledge and understanding were his chief ambition. The ways of the heavens he assiduously studied. The great circuit of Nibiru he studied, its length a shar to be he fixed, as 1 year of Nibiru was the measure, by it the royal reigns to be numbered and recorded. The shar to 10 portions he divided, 2 festivals thereby he pronounced. When nearest to the sun's quarters, a festival of the warmth was celebrated. When to its far abode Nibiru was distant, the festival of coolness was decreed. Replacing all olden festivals of tribes and nations to unify the people, the two were established. Laws of husband and wife, of sons and daughters, by decree he established. Customs from the first tribes he proclaimed for the whole land. From the wars, females greatly outnumbered males. Decree he made 1 male to have more than 1 female, for knowing by law 1 wife as official spouse to be chosen. First wife to be called by law if the firstborn son was his father's successor. By these laws confusion soon came about. If the firstborn son not by the first wife was born, and thereafter by the first wife a son was born, by the law the legal heir becoming, who shall be the successor? The one by the count of Shar's firstborn, the one by the first wife born, the firstborn son, the legal heir, who shall inherit, who shall succeed? In the reign of Anshargal, King Shalgar, as first wife was pronounced, a half-sister of the king she was. In Anshargal's reign, concubines were again brought into the palace. By the concubines, sons and daughters to the king were born. A son by one was the first to be born, the son of a concubine was the firstborn. Thereafter King Shalgar bore a son, the legal heir by the name he was, the firstborn he was not. In the palace Shalgar raised her voice in anger, shouting, If by rules my son by a first wife born from succession shall be barred, let the double seed not be neglected. Though of different mothers of one father, the king and I are offspring. I am the king's half-sister, of me the king is half-brother. By that my son, the double seed of our father, Anib possesses. Let henceforth the law of the seed, the law of a spouse overpower. Let henceforth a son by a half-sister, whenever born, above all others rise to succession. And Shargal, contemplating the law of the seed, embraced with favor. Confusion of spouse and concubines, of marriage and divorce it would be avoided. In their council, the royal councillors, the law of the seed for succession adopted. By the king's order, the scribe's decree recorded. Thus the next king by the law of the seed for succession was proclaimed. To him the royal name Anshar was granted. Fifth on the throne he was. Now this is the account of the reign of Anshar and the kings who followed. When the law was changed, the other princes were contending. Wars there were, rebellion there was not. As his spouse Anshar, a half-sister, chose, he made her first wife by the name Kishar she was called. Thus was by this law the dynasty continued in the reign of Anshar. The fields diminished, the years, fruits and grains lost abundance. From circuit to circuit, nearing the sun, heat grew stronger. In the faraway abode, coolness was more biting. And again, the throned city, the king, those of great understanding assembled. Learned savants, those of great knowledge to inquire were commanded. The land and the soil they examined, the lakes and streams they put to the test. It has happened before, some gave an answer. Nibiru in the past colder or warmer has grown. A destiny it is, in the circuit of Nibiru embedded. Others of knowledge the circuit observing. Nibiru's destiny to blame did not consider. In the atmosphere a breaching had occurred, that was their finding. Volcanoes the atmosphere forbear lest belching were spitting up. Nibiru's error has then been made, the protective shield has been diminished. In the reign of Anshar and Kishar, pestilence art Phil made appearance. Turo could not them overcome. Their son Anshar, then the throne ascended. Of the dynasty, the sixth he was. Lordly master of the Shar, the name did signify. With great understanding he was born with much, learning he mastered much knowledge. To remedy the afflictions, ways he sought of Nibiru heavenly circuit, he made much study. In its loop of the sun's family 5 members it embraced, planets of dazzling beauty. For cures to the afflictions, their atmospheres he caused to be examined. To each he gave a name. Ancestral forefathers he honored. As heavenly couples he them considered. On and onto the twin-like planets he called the first 2 to be encountered. Beyond in Nibiru's council were Anshar and Kishar, in their size the largest. As a messenger, Gaga among the others coursed. Sometimes first Nibiru to meet. 5 in all were Nibiru's heavenly greeters, as the sun is circled. Beyond, like a boundary, the hammered bracelet the sun encircled. As a guardian of the heavens, forbidden region with havoc it protected. Other children of the sun, 4 in number, from intrusion the bracelet shielded. The atmospheres of the 5 greeters Anshar set out to study. In its repeating circuit, the 5 in Nibiru's loop carefully were examined. What atmospheres they possessed by observation of a celestial chariot intensely were examined. The findings were astounding, the discoveries confusing. From circuit to circuit, Nibiru's atmosphere more breaching suffered, and the councils of the learned cures were avidly debated. Ways to banish the wound were urgently considered. A new shield to embrace the planet was attempted. All that was thrust up back to the ground came down. In the councils of the learned, the Belgian volcanoes were studied. The atmosphere by Belgian volcanoes having been created, its wounds by their diminished belching had come to be. Let with invention new belching be encouraged. Let volcanoes spew again. One savage group was saying how the feat to achieve with what tools more belching to attain. None of the kings could inform. In the region of Onshar, the breach in the skies grew bigger. Rains were withheld, winds blew harder, springs from the depths did not arise. There was an accusation, the breasts of mothers were dry. In the palace there was distress, and accursion therein took hold. As his first wife, Onshar half-sister did, espoused by the law of the seed abiding. Ninshar she was called, bear of the shards the lady, a son she did not bear. By a concubine to Ninshar a son was born. The firstborn son he was. By Ninshar, first wife and half-sister, a son was not brought forth. By the law of succession, the concubine's son the throne ascended. The seventh to reign, he was Du-Uru, was his royal name, and the dwelling place fashion was its meaning. In the house of concubines, not in the palace, was he indeed conceived. As his spouse, a maiden from his youth beloved, Du-Uru, chose by love, not by seed. A first wife he selected. Da-Uru was her royal name. She who was by my side was the meaning. In the royal court, confusion was rampant. Sons were not heirs, wives were not half-sisters, and the land's suffering was increasing. Got their abundance. Among the people, fertility was diminished. In the palace, fertility was absent. Neither son nor daughter was brought forth. Of An's seed, 7 were the rulers. Then of his seed, the throne was dry. Duaru, a child at the palace gateway found, as a son she embraced him. Duuru, in the end, as a son him adopted, legal heir him decreed. Lama, meaning dryness, was his given name. In the palace, the prince were grumbling, in the council of councils there were complaints. In the end, Lama the throne ascended, though not of An's seed, he was the eighth to reign. In the council of the learned, to heal the branch, there were 2 suggestions. One was to use a metal gold was its name. On the bureau it was greatly rare. With a hammer bracelet it was abundant. It was the only substance that to the finest powder could be ground, loft that high to heaven suspended it could remain. Thus with the replenishment, the breach it would heal, protection make better. Celestial boats be built, let the celestial fleet the gold to Nibiru bring over. Let weapons of terror be created, was the other suggestion, weapons that the ground shake loose, the mountains split asunder. With missiles the volcanoes to attack, their dormancy to bestir, their belching to increase, the atmosphere to replenish, the breach to make disappear. For decision Lama was too feeble. What choice to make he knew. One circuit Nibiru completed. 2 shards Nibiru to count continue. In the fields affliction was not diminished. By volcanic belching the atmosphere was not repaired. A 3rd shard passed, a 4th was counted. Gold was not obtained. And the land strife was abundant. Food and water were not abundant. And the land unity was gone. Accusations were abundant. In the royal court, servants were coming and going. Councils were rushing in and rushing out. Words pay no attention. Counsel from his spouse he only sought. Lahama was her name. If destiny it be, let us beseech the great creator of all. To the king she said, beseeching net actings, provide the only hope. In the royal court, the princes were astir. At the king, accusations were directed. Foolishly unreasoning, great calamities instead of cure he brought forth. From the olden storehouses, weapons were retrieved. Of rebellion, there was much speaking. A prince in the royal palace was the first to take up arms. By words of promise, the other princes he agitated. 'Tis name. Let Lama be the king no more, he shouted. Let decision supplant hesitation come. Let us unnerve the king in his dwelling. Let him the throne abandon. The princes to his word gave heed. The gate of the palace they rushed. To the throne room its entrance restricted. Like onrushing waters they went. To the tower of the palace the king escaped. Alelu was him pursuing. The struggle. Lama fell down to his death. Lama is no more. Alelu shouted. The king is no more. With glee he announced. To the throne room Alelu rushed. On the throne he himself seated, without right or counsel, a king he himself pronounced. And the land unity was lost, some by the death of Lama. Rejoiced, others by Alelu's deed were saddened. Now this is the account of the kingship of Alelu and of the going to earth. And the land unity was lost. About the kingship many were aggrieved. In the palaces princes were agitated. In the councils were destroyed. From father to son, succession from on the throne continued. Even Lama the eighth by adoption a son was proclaimed. Who was Alelu? Was he a legal heir? Was he a firstborn? By what right did he usurp? Was he not a king's slayer? The seven who judge Alelu was summoned, his fate to consider. Before the seven who judge Alelu spread his pleas. Though neither legal heir nor a son, firstborn of royal seed indeed he was. Of Anshargal am I descended, before the judges he claimed. By concubine my ancestors was to him born. Alam was his name. By the count of shards, Alam was the firstborn, the throne to him belonged. By conniving, the queen his rights put aside. A law of the seed from naught she created. For her son the kingship obtained. Alarm of kingship she deprived. To her son instead it was granted. By descent of Alarm's generation am I continued. The seed of Anshaglar is within me. The seven who judged to Alelu's words gave heed. To the counsel of counselors they passed. The matter truth or falsehood to ascertain. The royal angels from the house of records were brought forth. With much care they were read. On and onto the first royal couple were. 3 sons and no daughters to them were born. The firstborn was Enki. He died on the throne. He had no offspring. The middle son in his stead the throne ascended. Anib was his name. Anshargal was his firstborn. The throne he ascended. After him on the throne kingship by the firstborn did not continue. The law of succession by the law of the seed was supplanted. The concubine's son was the firstborn. By the law of the seed of kingship he was deprived. The kingship instead of Kishagar's son was granted. Her being a half-sister of the king was the reason. Of the concubine's son, the firstborn, the angels made no record. Of him I am descended. Alelu to the councils cried out. By the law of succession to him kingship belonged. By the law of succession to kingship am I now entitled. With hesitation in councils of Alelu, an oath of truth demanded. Alelu swore the oath of life or death as king the council him considered. They summoned the elders, they summoned the princes. Before them the decision was pronounced. From among the princes, a young prince stepped forward. About the kingship words he wished to say. Succession must be reconsidered to the assembly, he said. Though neither firstborn nor by the queen of a son of pure seed am I descended. The essence of An in me is preserved, by no concubine diluted. Heard the words with amazement. The young princes stepped closer, they summoned. They asked for his name. It is Anu, after my forefather An, and my name. They inquired about his generations. Of An's 3 sons he them reminded. Enki was the firstborn. Without the son or daughter he died. Anib was the middle son. Instead of Enki, the throne he ascended. Anib, the daughter of his younger brother, took to be wife. From them onward, the succession is in the angels recorded. Who was that younger brother, a son of An and Antu, one of the pure seed? The counselors with wonderment looked at each other. And Uru was his name. Anu to them announced, he was my great ancestor. His spouse, Ninuru, was a half-sister. Her son was firstborn, and Nama was his name. His wife was a half-sister. By laws of seed and succession, a son she bore him. Of pure descent, the generations continued. By law and by seed perfect, Anu, after our forefather An, did my parents name me. From the throneship we were removed. From An's pure seed we were not removed. Let Anu be king. Many councils shouted, let Alelu he remove. Others cautioned, did counsel, let strife be prevented, let unity prevail. They called in Alelu. The discovered findings to be told to the prince Anu. Alelu his arms in a brace offered to Anu. He thus said, though by different offspring of one ancestor we are both descended, let us live in peace together. Nubiru to abundance return. Let me keep the throne, let you keep the succession. To the council words he directed. Let Anu crown prince be, let him be my successor. Let his son my daughter espouse, let succession be united. Anu bowed before the council to the assembly. He thus declared, Alelu's cupbearer I shall be, his successor in waiting, a son of mine, a daughter of his as bride shall choose. That was the council's decision in the royal annals. It was inscribed in this manner. Alelu on the throne remained seated. He summoned the sages, Salmons, and commanders he consulted for deciding. He gained much knowledge. Let celestial boats be constructed. He decided to seek the gold in the hammer bracelet. He decided by the hammer bracelet the boats were crushed. None of them returned. Let with weapons of terror the bowels of Nibiru be cut open. Let volcanoes again erupt, he then commanded. With weapons of terror skyborne chariots were armed. With terror missiles from the skies were volcanoes struck. The mountains swayed, the valleys shuddered, as great beams with thunder exploded. In the land there was much rejoicing, of abundance there were expectations. In the palace Anu was for Alelu the cupbearer. He would bow at Alelu's feet, set the drinking cup in Alelu's hand. Alelu was a king, Anu as a servant by him was treated. In the land rejoicing receded, rains were withheld. winds blew harder, the belching by volcanoes did not increase, the breach in the atmosphere did not heal. In the heavens, Nibiru its circuits kept coursing. From circuit to circuit, heat and cold grew harder. To suffer, the people of Nibiru ceased to revere the king. Instead of relief, misery he caused. Alelu on the throne remained seated. The strong and wise Anu, foremost among the princes, were standing before him. He would bow to Alelu's feet, set the drinking cup in Alelu's hand. For 9 counted periods, Alelu was king of Nibiru. In the ninth Shar, Anu gave battle to Alelu. To hand combat with bodies naked, Alelu he challenged. Let the winner be king, Anu said. They grappled with each other in a public square. Doorposts trembled and walls shook. Alelu bent his knee to the ground. He fell on his chest. Alelu in combat was defeated. By acclaim, Anu was hailed as king. Anu to the palace was escorted. Alelu to the palace did not return. From the crowds he stealthily escaped, doing like Lama he was fearful. Unbeknownst to others, to the place of the celestial chariots he hurriedly went. Into a missile-throwing chariot, Alelu climbed. Its hatch behind him he closed. The four-part chamber he entered, the commander's seat he occupied, that which shows the way he lit up. With bluish aura the chamber filling, the first stones he stirred up. Their hum like music was enthralling. The chariot's great cracker he enlivened. A reddish brilliance it was casting. Unbeknownst to others, in his celestial boat, Alelu from Nibiru escaped. To snow-hued earth, Alelu set his course. By secret from the beginning, he chose his destination.